Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tent Times with Tim. You know I'm a sound guy, I like to take field recordings and stuff, so I wanted to find the coolest sounds possible on the 101 on the Oregon coast. I found a place and I thought it was too good to be true when I was doing the research online, but it has delivered and more. So where are we right now? We are just off of the 101 at the Barview Jetty County Campground. You know I love a good jetty. Jetties can be dangerous though, because if you're in a boat, you have to know where there's jetties. And a lot of the time in the Pacific Northwest on the coast, you know, it gets misty, sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's sunny and beautiful. But foggy. So foggy is the technical term for why these lighthouses with the foghorns mostly exist, and it's when it's foggy, you don't know where there's jetties, and that's where there could be rocks. So they have foghorns, and what's really cool about the Barview Jetty Campground. See, when I was doing my research, I didn't see anything mentioning dogs barking. I'm trying to do a vlog. Could you put your dog down? So it's so cool when you don't have dogs barking and people playing their goddamn ukuleles the next site over. What's really cool is this foghorn actually goes off every 28 seconds. 28 seconds is less than half of a minute. So wait, that means sometimes you don't get 2 foghorn blasts a minute, you get 3. So I did some math and it turns out that every 15 minutes you get 3 foghorn blasts in 1 minute, all through the night. So yeah, I recommend it highly. Check out Barview Jetty. All right, it is that time again to check the patchworks.com used and vintage section. Oh, we got a Digitone here. That looks like a lot of fun. Is there anything cool and new that we haven't seen? SSF stereo dipole filter. That is an amazing piece of kit there. All sorts of cool stuff. Matrix Brute, that's a super powerful synth. Ooh, another SSF Autodyne compressor. That is on my list. The Octopad is still there. It's dropped down to $400. Oh my gosh. Oh, what else do we got? Ooh. Oberheim OB8. Oh, the keytar's still there. I know a lot of you out there are just dying for a keytar. Look at this, a Metron. I just was looking at this the other day when I was in there. These are hard to come by, so that's a really, really, really cool gate sequencer. But let's just check out the Eurorack page. Oh, an Expert Sleepers ES9. I just got myself one of those. There's a new Raya Media harmonic looper, the Taurus. I really, really like Raya's stuff. That sounds and seems very cool. I'm really, really considering picking up this Buchla tip-top quad low-pass gate. I want to try it out first, but that is also on the list. Of course, you know I love all the new Foreign Mess stuff. I picked this module up from Patchworks probably 3 or 4 months ago. The tip-top audio Buchla, Source of Uncertainty, and I love this module. It is so cool. It is such a powerhouse for CV. Yeah, I can't go through all of these modules, but before I leave this segment of the show, I also want to let you know that there is a Halloween sale. So if you use the discount code SPOOKY10 at checkout, you will receive 10% off of your purchase at patchworks.com. patchwerks.com. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Podular Modcast. My name is Tim Held. This week we have Sweeping Promises on the show. Sweeping Promises is one of my current favorite bands, and if you've been listening to the show long enough, you know that when I go on my yearly anniversary road trip with my wife Hannah, I always make a playlist full of music that we don't know, and in the hopes of finding some cool stuff. and also, cementing the memory with a sound, so when we listen to that music in the future, it makes us all nostalgic and stuff. And Sweeping Promises was that band for this most recent trip. So I reached out and asked them to come on the show, and I can't wait for y'all to get to know them and check out their music if you haven't already. But before we get into that, Burr, it's cold outside. My hands are really cold. The seasons are a-changin', or as Tom Petty once said, the leaves, they are a-changin'. I think that's right. But yeah, we're going to get into that chat soon. But first, some quick business. What's this? What's this behind me on the screen? The Podular Modcast store. I haven't added any new items recently, but we've got these cool beanies, all sorts of really fun stuff. Tie-dye beanies, tie-dye beanies are the best. The Podular Modcast logo that John Herndon of Tortoise did on a sweatshirt, another hoodie with the PodMod logo, some 5-panel caps. I look dumb in those, but if they work well for your head shape, then I highly suggest them. I really like this shirt. All sorts of colors, some PodMod mugs, some cups, just a bunch of stuff. Stickers, notebooks, pins. So yeah, if you would like to support Podular Modcast, go ahead and head over to podularmodcast.com. I'd also like to say thank you to everybody who supports Podular Modcast on Patreon. If you would like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Podular Modcast. I just shared some super secret information on the Patreon page. So if you are a patron, go check that out. And if you would like to get in on that secret information and future giveaways, which I'm going to be doing very soon, that will be cassette tapes. I even made some of my own mixtapes of my own music, so I think I have 8 of those or something. Some patch cables, all sorts of fun stuff. Once again, that's patreon.com/Podular Modcast. And finally, before we get into this episode, I just want to share some cool sounds that I have made so far with the Qubit Mojave. It is a super fun granular module that has a lot of really unique features that I have not seen on other granular modules. And one of my favorite things about it is it's really good with feeding percussive stuff into it with the right settings and creating all sorts of really cool granular glitchy beats. So yeah, let's check out some sounds of me running my Roland V drum through the Qubit Mojave, and then we'll get into this chat. I had just packed up all of my film equipment, but I had to set back up again because my wife made a really astute observation. She said, I think it's happening more often than every 28 seconds. And I thought to myself, no, the internet wouldn't lie. So I got the old stopwatch out. Turns out it's every 15 seconds. So, remember earlier in the video when I said I thought it was too good to be true? Well, what's the opposite of that? 4 times a minute. We were only going to stay here for one night, but I think we might have to shuffle things around. All right. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. Caufield and Lira, right? I'm pronouncing
Yes.
both those. You guys have cool names. My name's Tim Held, and my last name is a past tense verb and kind of a boring one. So I always, have a little bit of I wouldn't call it jealousy now because I'm almost 40, but I'll call it like, vicarious living when I meet people with names that I think are cooler than Tim. So, yeah. And now I put you in the awkward position of having to respond to something that was really lacking any substance at all. So,
It
um,
is an honor to be held by you in this forum.
hey, and nice. I like that. See, now that was just what I needed. Somebody to like, turn my perspective. I'm looking off the mountain this way, but you're like, hey, there's something that way too. Um, so Lyra, I know that you and I chatted on Instagram about this, and I'm not sure, Caulfield, if you know, but I'm just going to set this up for the guests. Me and my wife went on our annual um, road trip anniversary. So we always take a road trip somewhere and camp for about a week and just try to go to cool places within, 9-10 hours of Tacoma, Washington. And when we do this, I always spend about a week or two before building a playlist full of music that we are not familiar with because I've always, I found out at an early age that music has this power of being able to be sort of a time capsule. And I like to have this time capsule effect with the road trip. So we get into this new music, we start finding new stuff, and then now, certain albums will always give me that feeling that I had from that time. And this year we did a post-punk um, list, and every time a song came on where I was like, oh, this is good, let me see who this is, 9 times out of 10 it was you guys. So I got to the point where I just added both of your albums. Like I didn't even try to find the songs because I just had a handful of songs from the albums, and I just added both the albums to the playlist. And yeah, it's I know that I'm interviewing you and I am rambling on and on, but I'm going to tie a bow on this. And I think what I'm so drawn to you guys, like what draws me in so much is I feel like with a lot of, especially with rock pop music, there's not a lot of new ground to cover. I feel like that, like it's not that it's limited, but like it's a genre, and there's characteristics of it. And what I'm really what I found out recently that I really like is finding people who can take the good parts of all this pre-existing kind of genre music and put their own voice on it and make it new and fresh somehow. And I feel like both of the Sweeping Promises albums are that, and they are front to back bangers. Like another thing I really love about them is every time I listen, I have a new favorite song. I'm like, oh, you got to check this song out when I'm telling my friends. And then I'll like, the next day I'll be like, okay, I told you to listen to that one, but if you haven't, maybe start with this one. And it's it's always switching around. So again, I put you in an awkward spot to where I haven't asked you a question, and I've just, but I guess I want to say thanks for all of that. That's my big way of saying thank you. And Sweeping Promises will always remind me of our trip down the 101. And I think it was our best trip yet, and one of my favorite vacations of all time. So y'all are going to be forever intertwined with that. So I love that aspect of music. So again, thanks for that.
Thank you for telling us that story.
It's so beautiful, and just really means a lot to us that we were able to play a small part in, the celebration of this, love and this adventure that you went on and this tradition that you have. And yeah, we're really happy to be linked to such a beautiful memory.
Awesome. Yeah, it's and I love, say what you will about today's world of like Instagram, social media and everything, but the one really cool thing about it is I can just send you a message. I'm about to eat at a diner, our first meal out on this trip, and I can send you this message, and by the time we get into the car after the meal, I'm like, oh, they responded. And it's just like kind of a cool way to have a connection. So there are a lot of directions I kind of wanted to take today, but I kind of want to just start with where maybe just each of you kind of take a few minutes to say where you're from, where you grew up, and what was like not the music that made you want to be a musician, but do you remember the first artist or piece of music that got into your young mind and made you realize that music was the jam, the business?
Um, I started gigging and recording quite heavily when I was 13.
Oh, nice.
And uh, I lived in Austin, Texas, and it was sort of a different time. It was a little more
Uh-huh.
permissive. And I was booking shows. I don't even, when I look back at clubs and stuff, and it was fine. Like
Yeah.
we did it all the time. I was in
You're such a go-getter.
4 bands or something
Wow.
in high school, and I didn't work a part-time job. I made money from the clubs for like Taco Bell.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was my life. And
Need to make enough money at this gig tonight to get a crunch wrap.
Yeah,
and
hell
it was
yeah.
exactly. But that's really what it was all for. It's like this sort of Ouroboros of life of just like
Yeah.
playing a show for a crunch wrap. But it was during the super shiny, happy, fun times of Audie's Austin DIY, where the music was super exuberant and maximal, and there were primitive electronics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I Twee was a very big thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I was kind of as a teenager, I was wanted to be a part of that indie pop show, that kind of um, that time that I've never really seen again, of just people living in houses very, very cheaply
Mm-hmm.
and making sort of like plastic happy music.
I
I was
had a
listening to Animal
yeah.
Collective. I was
Yeah, yeah,
listening to,
totally.
yeah, you know,
Yep.
I don't know, like that
I
kind of
think
stuff.
around this time I was living in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I was actually going to grad school and I quickly just made friends with the music scene and started spending more time there. But yeah, it's totally what you described. We were recording, there was a house with my bandmates that had all their roommates had other bands. So there was multiple practice spaces in one house and you'd have to like coordinate when your practices were and all that. So yeah, it was a really fun time.
Can I like I told this story actually at a show once. I just grew up this way. A
Uh-huh.
lot of my friends lived in houses together in for bands, and their rent, it'd be like 3 to 4 people to a house, and they would pay about $100 a
Uh-huh.
month
Yeah.
in rent, and they'd work like they'd have a part time job,
Uh-huh. Yep.
10 hours a week or less, and it was more sustainable than life now. Like
Totally.
you
Totally.
just gig once or twice a month, and yeah, you have like a studio in your house, and I knew quite a few people who lived that life.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
It
Yeah, I
is
think that
cool,
a lot of like
I
the
think like,
Midwest towns in like Austin and some of the, Athens and stuff like that, they all, I think, if you're in one of those towns with a cool like indie scene, there was always like at least some house shows you could play in a small community that you could kind of like that could coalesce around your interests and whatnot. But
I I thought, when I turn 18, I'm just gonna do that, because
hmm
it was so pervasive.
hmm
I ended up going to college instead, but uh, and then that's where I met Lira.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Cool. So Lyra, what was your version of that story?
Well, I feel like my first memories of music were listening to ABBA and Lata Mangeshkar on cassette tape, because my mom had like a very eclectic cassette collection, and so I just remember like my earliest memories of listening to music are just like all her tapes of like, I don't know, like soft rock or 70s, folk or whatever, like, Indian classical music, in a tiny little boombox by her bed. And she would play them for me at night before it was bedtime. And so there was just always just various forms of pop music playing throughout the household.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Something just fell into mind, and it's actually a question I was going to ask later, but I don't want to
Sure.
forget now. This all makes sense, especially ABBA, and this like eclectic mix of pop music and right before bed, because like that's you go to bed and then your brain's kind of reworking all that stuff. And now I don't think I need to ask, how is it that y'all are so good at writing poppy vocal hooks? Like even your verses are like chorus, like catchy, and but like in such a tasteful way. So I think I get it now. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
It's all the ABBA. It's
Yeah,
those
yeah. I
Swedish,
mean, come on, right?
connections. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much ABBA. So, like my mom would like sing that song Chiquitita, but like not know all the Spanish or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And like sing it in her like mangled like Bengali accent, which is really funny. Because if you know my mom, you know that she's always singing.
Uh-huh.
She is like when she's not talking your ear off, she's singing at you.
Now, did you
So
get that from her? Are you like if you're by yourself doing house chores or something? Because that's how I am. My wife has to be like, "Hey, all right, let's cool it. Maybe can you sing a different song? I'll sing the same like verse to chorus for like an hour." And I'm like, "I'm practicing."
Did you sing growing up? Like, were you in choirs or anything?
No, I was never trained, but well, this is kind of a funny story. But my dad's dream when he was a kid was to be a singing soccer player. So take that. And he
That's
never
awesome.
learned an instrument. But when I was in early grade school, it's like when big Laserdisc karaoke, like the record size
Yeah,
Laserdisc
yeah.
karaoke. So he bought a karaoke machine, and he did what he called dinner shows, where they would charge like a cover at this little place in Roslyn, Washington, this tiny town in Washington. And he would have a set list of karaoke songs that he'd sing. And so like that kind of expanded into doing like parties with karaoke and then also like wedding DJing stuff. So we had a karaoke machine in the basement of my house, and my parents were always like having parties. So I grew up singing karaoke. He did this thing called kids karaoke where he tried to get like kids to come in and do it, and no kids from the community did it, so he would make me do it. um, and so yeah, he'd make me well, I mean it was my jam at the time, but Hank Williams Sr., I got Lovesick Blues was like my first like real karaoke jam. And then I sang in bands through high school and all through college. But then I like started to hate my lyrics and what I couldn't do with my voice. I hold lyrics very high on a pedestal, so I started just doing like weird experimental electronic, and that's where I'm at now. But I sing a lot, just not in anything that I release.
Yeah. I'm glad that you sing. I feel
I
like more
love it.
people should sing. I
It's
love singing.
like as far as like what music does, like playing guitar, playing drums. I it's that visceral. That's that connection. That's that you get lost in it. You become the task type thing. Singing is just so much more powerful. I can, if I'm singing along to a song with beautiful lyrics, like my voice will crack because I'll feel like I'm about to cry because my body is tingling with the emotion of the song. And that's like one of my favorite feelings in the entire world.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I
yeah, I
love
just
that.
got to a point where I'm like, this is for me. I don't necessarily need to do any, I don't need to release this. Like, I don't need the validation from outside. Like, this is just something I really enjoy doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Sorry,
like
I feel like I've talked
I
way
need the
more.
validation.
Oh, I mean, come on. There's a part of all of us and everybody listening right now. Like we get into art, I feel like not just for self-expression. I think we get to realize that later and hopefully, understand that that's the most rewarding part. But I think as youngsters, you're doing it because, you want to be cool. You want people to like you want romantic partners to like you and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, no shame there. Well, maybe shame, but we all have the shame.
Yeah. Well, it's more going back to your point of being able to have this like kind of field of communication. Like, I don't know. We're both really grateful for music to be able to put us in touch with other, sympathetic souls who
Mm-hmm.
are, oceans away or like states away or, continents away. So yeah, we're pretty grateful.
Yeah. Sorry. So growing up, listening to ABBA, your mom's singing all the time.
Singing all the
Where do we
time.
go from there?
I'm singing all the time. So I start singing in choirs when I am in third grade. And so I grew up in Arkansas.
Okay.
And my mom worked at the University of Arkansas in the library, just like college library. So um, they started this really novel program for kids of anybody affiliated with the university as kind of like an after school initiative, and it was a children's choir. And so through that, I got like some, after school socialization. I was able to, work on something that I, just really intuitively took to, that came kind of naturally to me, it just felt automatic. And that was singing. And so being able at an early age to be part of a music program like this was huge. And we got to, compete in regional competitions, and we did this thing every Christmas where we would, go caroling in the town square, which would be all lit up. And it was just so gorgeous and idyllic. And, it's just, there are Christmas lights everywhere and horse-drawn carriages and hot chocolate.
Nice.
And so I just have these like very, like tightly held memories of those experiences of just being with other kids and, lifting our voices up in song in unison. It was really beautiful.
That's so
And
cool.
then, of course, as I got older and I started listening to like cooler music or getting into capital M music,
What were some of the first ones that what were the cool ones that started breaking you away from the choir kind of realm of music? Like what were some of the early and they can it'll be funnier to me if they aren't actually cool, but like what was
Lira
cool?
She was a cool prodigy when she was a kid, and she's gonna try to downplay it. But I met Lira when I was 19, and we
Okay.
actually did a mixtape swap. It was
yeah,
crazy.
well, because I thought Caufield was super cool. We keep talking about how we wish we'd known each other in high school to see if we would have started a band together sooner. Because I was like such a nerd. I was such a geek, and so I really wanted to be in a band and play in bands, but no one would take me. I just didn't know how to access that.
Were you playing bass at that time?
No.
Okay.
I had like a shitty like Guitar Center learners acoustic that
I
I
think
could not figure out.
Okay, because I learned my mom had a guitar as a kid and never learned to play it, and so it just sat in our house. And then at like 11, I got it out, and the action was high, and the strings were old. It was just like a poorly set up guitar, and that's what I learned on. And I think it actually influenced my playing style a whole lot. Like I think I just, there were certain, because of the effort that it took to actually make chords on this and hold all the strings down without dampening all the other ones. Like, I think it made my technique a lot better because it was a shitty guitar. So,
Yeah.
but you didn't really play it much?
No, not at all. No, I took piano lessons kind of sporadically throughout childhood, and I had a really cheap like Yamaha keyboard that I would try to like write on, but there was just I don't know, a block between having ideas and executing them. And
I totally get that. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm still working with that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It is, it's like a lifelong challenge. Yeah. But yeah, let's see. Like, well, one of the earliest cool bands that I was introduced to that I had no idea who they were until later in life was Kraftwerk.
Oh,
And
cool.
this came about in a really roundabout way. So, my mom, again, like working in at the U of A, she would oftentimes like babysit for other like grad students or professors who had kids. And so there was this British couple who she babysat for, and they had this Kraftwerk cassette, and it had the song Pocket Calculator on it. And so I was just like, I would like just be reciting the like, I'm an operator with my pocket calculator over and over. And no context other than this is a funny song about a calculator. And then later on I was like, oh, that's them.
Yeah. Autobahn was the one for me that really like cracked my head open. That was, I really liked that one. Which is funny you bring Kraftwerk up on Caufield. I just really quick wanted to ask you, like, I'm sure you're into like all sorts of experimental or, like kind of more obscure music. And the reason this is kind of the part of the reason I wanted to talk to y'all is because I kind of, through your production and the way that you just present your tracks, like I can tell, I knew that. And that to me is really, that's fucking amazing. And you guys do it really subtly too. So like, yeah, well, let's not, I want Lira to be able to finish her story, but like, that was one of the things that I'm also so excited about with your guys.
We should get into it. That's really that's more interesting than me being like, I like Joy Division. I'm 13.
Can I just say on our first like mixtape exchange or whatever, we met in a small town in Arkansas. You got to understand, like,
like population, like what, 40,000?
Yeah, it is Conway, Arkansas.
So you're finding cool music, especially at this time, probably 15 years ago or something.
15,
like
it
wasn't the world that we have now, to where
that's true. It is the dark force of the internet were kind of not as there, right? It really indicated something when people were into kind of deeper stuff that they. Especially when they were like in a sort of record store desert or something, like it really means something that this person's a digger. But I remember like Lira was like, have you heard of DNA? And I remember like right before going to college, getting really into no wave and be like, are you kidding me? I love this.
Oh yeah, we bonded over like no wave and
I love that.
because like you introduced me to broadcast, which has become a touchstone. Again, within like, the synthesis world, but then also like just exquisite pop, songwriting.
One of the best.
Shit. Yeah.
One of the best. And that Barbarian Sound Studio.
Oh my God. Yes. Of course. Absolutely.
So fucking good.
Yeah.
We just made our own little dyad and we just kind of attached to each other and made a sort of world of shared references.
That we continue to build on.
But about the production, I'm glad that you like it, for better for worse. I'm glad that you're not on Reddit being like another album ruined by Caufield. Well,
I was gonna ask how much like of a hand, like I get the sense that you guys like are the producers or work like very closely with a producer and have like most all of the say and whatnot. Like that's the sense I get.
It's just the two of us.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Start to finish.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm one of the crazy people that as far as like the producing of an album, like making, writing, everything, my favorite aspect of the whole thing is actually mixing what I've actually, because writing is the hard part. Mixing is where I get to really have the fun and make. So yeah, I've had other people mix my music and it's been good and everything, but like I really need to have that control, I guess. So yeah, that's cool to hear that. And so I want to say like, because I mean, you guys are like, I think the Sweeping Promises project, because I know you guys have a bunch of other projects. Pardon me, my coffee's giving me hiccups. There's obviously a garage element, the post-punk element. So it's like, for me, it's like garage, post-punk, pop, rock kind of mashed into one. And I think at first listen, you could say like, oh yeah, this is like recorded like a garage rock album, but that's not the feel that I get from your production. It is similar. It's within the same maybe family tree, but like I said, I feel like I hear experimental, like I don't know the track, but I swear there's one track where you have the entire track like with like sidechain compressed by the kick and just ever so slightly. Am I right about that? Is there one that just kind of slightly flexes and pulses on the new record? I think you maybe not have done that, but
I don't sidechain.
Okay. But yeah, there was something going on there.
Yeah. Well, actually, I guess technically maybe you could call that sidechaining when you put the whole mix through a compression and then it's sort of mixed in. That's technically a sidechain. So it could kind of have like a pulsing type of feel. But I'm usually not a big fan of that technique.
Yeah, no, and that's I totally get that, and like I said, I like wasn't even sure if that's what I was hearing because what you do is so subtle. Because that's like usually what I'm listening to after I get into it. Like I can tell generally if I like the production style, but if I really start to hone in on like liking the songs and the production together, then I start like switching my brain into like what are they doing here, and yeah, I felt like there was something I couldn't figure out, but that was my best guess. But I wasn't even confident that that's what it was. But yeah, there's just this like griminess and it's almost like there's a distance to it. Like it sounds like the music's far away, but it's also punching you in the face at times. Like I don't know. I just love it. Um,
The new album was recorded in our new studio, which is very reverberant, and
okay.
and we wanted to use really reverberant spaces. We actually went on the search to find the
I
perfect space. Like a and I like a type of reverb that's sort of defamiliarizing, and I
mhm.
like a non-exultant reverb, if that makes sense, for like a reverb that doesn't make things sound like,
Cathedraly.
yeah, exactly, like a shrine that's like
Yeah, especially
a
now with like
monumental reverb or something.
Like
Like,
literally vaulted.
yeah,
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I like
totally.
I like a type of ambience that sort of renders something I don't know, like weird or so. Like,
Now
yeah,
Like
I
you're not
gotta
supposed to be there.
yeah.
yes. Oh, I love that. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. Well, this is a super nerdy technical question, but have you like done any stuff where like taking impulse response from places where you really like the reverb and then like like making your own reverbs in like
Hell no,
DAWs or
that doesn't
anything?
work. I have never.
I've never done it either,
I
but
don't
I know
believe
a
that
lot of
works. I've
yeah.
never been convinced that that is a thing that is transferable and mappable.
I've never done
I
it, but I
would
know people are
really
into
like
it.
to be convinced. I've um, to be fair, I haven't really tried myself. I've been party to sessions that have tried.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, I I will say we're humongous fans of reamping, and that is all
Yes.
over all of our music ever. So like we'll take a mix and then put a speaker in a bathroom, or we'll put a speaker in a big room and
Oh
then put a
my
microphone 30 feet away and then mix it into the mix.
oh
We'll do that
dude.
3 times, like Alvin Lucier, who's like one of my favorites, which is like the old way of doing impulse responses. If you like the sound
Yeah,
of a room, you just
totally.
put a speaker in it, and
Uh-huh.
you put your microphone somewhere 20 feet away or 10 feet away where it sounds good with your original mix. That's if you like sidechain compression, I would recommend doing that, like
Yeah.
sidechain ambience.
That's so funny because I'm like planning on doing that. Like I don't know if you can see behind me, but I've got a little Roland V drum kit, which it's got the old brain. Like I have spent the last year. I played drums in high school, had to sell my drum kit, and then didn't have a drum kit until a year ago when I got this. And I've just been playing relentlessly, and it's taken me a year to find like to mix all the voices on there like to a point where it doesn't just sound so cheesy, but it still sounds a little cheesy. And I don't really like to work with MIDI too much. I know I probably should, but my idea here is because I want to make like I almost wanted to take like sweeping promises kind of the idea in my head has been like Deerhoof, Sun, Mount Erie, and Bill Callahan. Like I want to like try to see if I can mix all those together and do something. And
That
so I'm
sounds
making these.
awesome.
Yeah,
Cocktail.
if I can
Yeah.
pull it off, it'll be awesome. But those are pretty big. Those are all very big shoes to fill. But like my own take on all of that. But so yeah, I want to do like I've got a pretty decent tube amp, and I want to like do a lot of reamping. And I was thinking of finding like I want to find like weird like pedestrian tunnels that are really long and just like try a
Mm.
bunch of weird shit and do exactly what you said, like mix that reamp in with the original. And I'm even thinking, I don't know if it'll work, but like enveloping the volumes of each, but so subtly that you can't really tell when one is more prominent than the other, but that could just be confusing and phasing could be an issue. But that's kind of where my head's at.
Oh, it's good. I do that all the time.
Nice.
I'll mix ambient reamps as like with like different song sections and
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
Like how
Okay.
you would mix like a master compressor or something.
Right.
Uh,
That's so cool.
yeah, I like it. Our first album, we sort of it was recorded in a somewhat illicit space. There's like a laboratory, and I think a lot about the impulse response thing and like the idea of digital reverb and be able to like model your own room at a time when musicians can't afford real estate. You know,
Mm.
like I think about that all the time. Like in the 70s, musicians had access to caverns, and now I believe we don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I when I go through that debate in my head or that thought process, I I, I conclude that we need to break into more spaces and we need to cause noise pollution. And I think you should go into a tunnel that or like a parking garage or something that you don't belong in for your reamping, because it's just right. It's just karma.
Sweeping promises says become ungovernable.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I just had another question then. Okay, so y'all are tracking yourselves, mixing yourselves. So like, do you have like mix sessions once things are tracked, and then like just like hang out in the studio, and then like, is it an over the shoulder Lyra for you? Is it like kind of hanging out? Because what I did when I was learning how to mix, when I was in a band with my friend, he was the guy who did everything. I just kind of paced behind him and said, "What if we tried this?" And I didn't have the vocabulary at the time, but I built it because our conversation like taught me how to do it. But like, is that like, how do you guys approach the mixing process?
That's pretty much it. I think it's
Mhm.
it's like 95% Caufield, and then like I have some input. I guess I sit next to you, but you do like all the preliminary, because Caufield, like, he'll even like pre-mix stuff as we're recording
I
just
do
to
the
get
same
things
thing.
sort
Yep.
of, yeah, like at a base level, and then he'll just go in and zero in on every single track, and there's usually like anywhere between like 15 and 40 tracks depending on how frisky I was feeling on vocals that day. Yeah, and he'll just like kind of fine tune all of that, and then he'll like pull me aside and be like, hey, maybe check out, I don't know, the bass synth on this track, or like, oh, see how your voice feels on this, and then maybe like do some fine tuning. And especially with Good Living, I think we sat down and mixed together, but you would still, again, like, done most of it, because he's kind of he's demon insane.
Yeah. I I think of like production copy of that album. I think I kind of like some lie or ridiculous statement where I was like, this album is not mixed, which is sort of true. Like
Yeah.
I think our goal is always to like not have a mixing session.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like record in such a way where like there is no, I don't know, sort of post process that is like very substantial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
It's like
kind of,
it's all in mono. Both our albums are mono.
yeah, I love that.
Um,
It's so funny.
yeah.
And it's, like, I didn't realize that until I listened to them both multiple times and then just read it when I was doing a little research for chatting with you. I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit. Well, that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy modular synthesis so much, is there's so many tools to like, and a lot of times you're either recording a stereo pair or a couple stereo pairs. I try to multi-track as much as I can, but now what modular has taught me, going into like playing guitar or recording drums or anything, is just get it as close to sounding good before you commit it to the tape or the digital tape. Because like I don't like to go crazy. I mean, it's compression and EQ. That's the stuff that I'm like, that's the stuff I nerd out at. Just like, I'm just gonna cut just tiny here, like. But yeah, I try to do as little of that post as possible, because I think because you can really get hung up in the post side of things. I think like songs can get. I mean, from my experience, songs can get away from me, and I'm just kind of like, I hated it when it started, and now like I absolutely hate it, and it was way better then, and I don't know how I could get back to then, and blah blah. You can had a lot of things fall
Totally.
by the wayside for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? I was gonna Lyra. I had another. So wait. So was it your guys' friendship that got you playing bass then?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
Caufield and I actually we met like it's such a cute story, and I love to tell it because it is, in my mind, a literal meet cute. So I was a music major in college. I studied voice, and I was in a loose musical collective. I don't even want to call it a band. With some fellow music majors, and we were just making like really terrible, like run of the mill kind of like indie pop that was sort of in the zeitgeist of like 2008, and or at least trying to, not even succeeding. And so we were in the basement of the music building one night, and we were just sort of I don't know, like goofing around, and I guess I had a bass in my hands or something, just like, I don't know, not really playing, just noodling. And then this like tall lanky guy like pops his head into the window and then opens the door and says, "Are you in a band? Can I be in your band?" And that was Caulfield. And I just like, I loved that he was just like so like bold and enthusiastic at the same time, and had such like an effervescent energy that also was like very confident. And so we became friends. Like, I think I made a pun about your name, as I am wont to do. Um and yeah, we became friends and traded music, and then figured out that we both had like very similar tastes, and essentially just splintered off and started doing our own thing. And then
Started working really hard.
yeah.
Well, you guys have like
We made
5 bands.
no, we have way more than that.
Way more than
We
that.
have,
Something like 10.
yeah, it's 10 bands.
I think Sweet
Wow.
Promises is our 10th project together.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, that's something I wanted to go ahead, Caulfield. I don't want to interrupt this thought tag on the story,
No.
but
No, that's all that I was thinking. It's been
so
a lot.
well, I went back and I listened to, because like that was such great news for me when I was doing a little research, and I was like, oh, this band that I just just found and really really enjoy. They have like the same people have like a bunch of other bands. So I've listened to I'm gonna get the names wrong because I tried so hard to remember them before this. God damn it! There's mini dress,
Mini dresses, yeah, yep.
mini dresses. And then there's fuck the. All right, I have to look. I'm sorry, but this is embarrassing, and I'm not going to edit this out either because
we don't
this
remember
is what
them
I
either.
get.
Well, we're just touched that we even looked them up.
Yes.
D parts, yeah, and mini dresses are the two that I've listened to, and what I found from those projects, I feel like they're definitely not sweeping promises, and they're definitely different from each other. I can tell the same people are making it, but I feel like Sweeping Promises is almost like the culmination, like this, like, I don't know, like, because you have a little bit of like the darker stuff, and then a little bit more of the poppier stuff, and like Sweeping, like this makes me like bring me to one of the questions I want to ask you, and I don't know if you're going to be able to have an answer, but did you guys like set out with the goal of Sweeping Promises to make it like, let's make every song a banger and something like an earworm, and just like an all out assault on your people's like pop, whatever that part of your brain where you're just like gravitated to that fucking hook? Because seriously, like every song, and I'm not just saying this, like every song could be the single from all your albums.
That's really, really kind of you to say. I think that maybe not, in so many words, but more as like a guiding principle of, let's, take 20 minutes or less with every writing session to make something that we like, that we feel is just like really pleasing to listen to, that gets us going. And if we don't like it, and if it's taking too long, we're going to abandon ship and move on to the next idea.
Okay.
It was right before COVID in 2020. We were recording that album, and when I look back on it, just quite simply for
Fall
me,
of 2019.
like that was an album where I had completely given up on music, and I, in the sense of like, this might be the last album we make, and I literally don't think anyone will listen to this. And I think you could hear it in the recording, like that kind of level of just like utterly doing it for ourselves. I thought of it as a memento.
Yeah.
And I was going to leave, and
that just made me emotional.
I was ending my PhD.
Yeah.
And our, all of our bands were basically side jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like that explains it. Like we needed second incomes. And I've been doing that since I was 13. It
really is how we supplemented ourselves in Boston is to gig, because both of us, we were very career minded. I was a pastry chef. Caufield, was in academia, pursuing a PhD at Harvard, and we both felt kind of like ostracized from our respective careers for pursuing something in the eyes of our higher ups as something that's kind of frivolous.
Especially as you get a little older, you approach like your mid. I'm assuming y'all are around the same age as me, just from the references and when in school and stuff. And I think something I've noticed. I'm sitting in my studio, which is a bedroom in the house that my wife and I have, and I'm surrounded by synths and guitars, and I'm 39, and a lot of my family, I still get it. This is over 5 years I've been doing this show. Are you still doing like the radio? You're like doing never did radio.
Yep.
Like it's and then it's like, I got to a point with this where I'm, making not my full living, but it's a supplemental, like you said. And then people start maybe like remembering a little more, or paying a little more attention or something. But yeah, it's like, it's a weird thing to be like in your mid 30s. And I was in academia as well. I all but thesis for a master's, but it was actually music in a deteriorating grad department at my grad school.
Can I interrupt you and ask in what capacity? Because I almost pursued grad studies in musicology. So
that's your field.
So I undergrad, I have 2 bachelor's degrees, one in anthropology and one in primate behavior and ecology. And the college that I went to, there were 4 chimpanzees who were, knew sign language. So I got to interact with chimpanzees using sign language. But I was mostly interested in the evolutionary side of things and the paleontological side of things. So I studied Eocene primate evolution in grad school. And I taught, for my assistantship, I taught the discussion sections of a race biology and culture class. That's basically like what we would call critical race theory now, this thing that everybody thinks is this new thing that's poisoning. It's like, no, like anthropologists have been talking about this for a while, guys. Yeah. And so I did some field work in Wyoming. I actually have a site named after me. I'm just going to go on a little side because I think it's fucking hilarious. So we're out there in the middle of the Wyoming desert. We're doing pedestrian survey. You line up 20 meters apart and you just walk. You shoot a bearing on a compass. You walk. You look at the ground. You find something. I have found this tiny little. I think it was like a rodent jaw or something. Little. And so the night before we were camped in the desert for 2 weeks, and the night before we were drinking around the fire, and I was telling embarrassing stories of my childhood, and my graduate advisor, the leader of the team, he was just cracking up about it the whole day, and he kept saying like Timmy's confession last night. So we found this thing, and he thought it was going to be an isolate, which is where you just find one little thing and then it's not really a site, but okay, we have an isolate here. Cause that's typical. So he called it Tim's confession. And about 5 minutes later, we walk around this corner. It turned out to be a site that had more fossils within the one site than all of the sites and isolates that he had found in his work for the previous, I think, 12 to 14 years. Yeah. So it just got named after me. And then they did like a Scientific American article about it. And so my name is in there only because I told embarrassing stories and happened to just find one little piece of thing on the ground. So I did not, there was no skill. It was not, I can't take any real credit. It was just kind of like, yeah. So that's kind of funny.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So yeah,
Tim's confession.
right. So the plan was to become a professor and do academic research. That was going to be the job. I didn't take summers off because I was just so, I partied in high school, was in metal band, and I was like, because growing up where I grew up and in the world that I grew up, kind of going back to what we were just talking about with like your colleagues in the non-music world, I felt like I need to like grow up,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and it was good for me, but like, yeah, I just, some bad breakups, the department falling apart, probably like a little bit of alcoholism in my late 20s. Like, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So yeah, just started doing music since then. Yeah. So what did you study at Harvard?
I was like I don't know, like a art guy. I was on the
Okay.
theory and criticism side.
Okay.
The PhD is called Visual Environmental Studies, but I taught a lot of like film and like aesthetics, some philosophy.
Did you ever teach about Tarkovsky? Did you ever use Tarkovsky as a reference?
I taught Tarkovsky.
Yes,
big time.
So cool.
Love
Tarkovsky.
I would often teach like the big like intro to film, or like like learn about world cinema or experimental cinema, or like histories of the avant-garde through moving images. Yeah, and then I would teach them like specialized courses.
Ways of listening. You should talk about ways of listening.
Yeah.
Cool.
I had a pet subfield called sound studies. Well, it wasn't mine, just something I'm interested in.
Did you get into like Pauline Oliveros work and stuff like that?
Big time. I taught some Pauline Oliveros, which, by the way, I think that a lot of those, her like sort of instructions and meditations for leading a creative life or having creative ideas is multi-applicable, not just to music.
For sure.
It can be great
like the deep listening. It's like a tiny book, but yeah, totally.
It's lovely. So I did teach it in the music department every now and then, but it would be about like philosophy of listening, like that kind of stuff. It wouldn't be like practical stuff.
Are you familiar with Todd?
It's practical in a way, but it wasn't about like notating or performing. It was more about thinking about listening or the materiality of sound and music.
That is so funny because, like, again, getting into more experimental music and then getting into modular, like, really brought me into like, the extremes of, finding out about people like Wendy Carlos and Pauline Oliveros. And there are two things that I have gained from that I think are just absolutely have absolutely like permeated throughout my life and actually have made me be better at being a person who has to live with and around other people. And one of those things is the listening. Like, I have a field recorder. I take it with me everywhere I go. I leave it recording overnight whenever I'm in the woods. Like, and so whenever I'm in any environment, I'm listening to the layers. How far away is that? What's making that sound? And it makes me more present, which I really like. And then with the patching thing is like, once I pull these chords out, this piece of music's gone. So it's almost like a Tibetan mandala or something. It's like one of those sand paintings. It's like you put all this time into it and it's beautiful, but now it's time to sweep it away. And sure, you can record it. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do, but it's a mini lesson in impermanence over and over and over again, and I think that is extraordinarily valuable. So yeah, that's my little spiel on that. Sorry, totally went off left field here, but
no, I used to assign I thought of my job as training filmmakers to kind of be better filmmakers, oftentimes like or training filmmakers to have a type of like critical mindfulness. And
yes. Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Favorite tools, right? Like, so like oftentimes like filmmakers think visually and ignore sound matter, you know, like or the sound is sort of a secondary or ancillary
or it's like too much in it, like, hey, back down, man, come on, like,
oh yeah, no, totally, like explosion, or like have this like really kind of like obvious sound centrism.
yes,
So I
I
would
hate it
notice
when that leads the witness, like the sound and the score can lead the witness to where like I know exactly what's going to happen
yeah,
now, like, and that bugs me. That'll make me turn a movie off. But
I would actually, it's really important to think about like obvious causality in sound, where like here's like connecting the source of the sound to the origin. It is like super obvious. I mean, it's there are like non-cliched ways to make soundscapes, and indirect and more inspiring ways to make sound links in your visuals. But I would make students go on sound walks and do field recordings, and that's how they learn that. And weirdly, I think that you can apply a sort of cinematic mindset to a soundscape. Like, how do you make a soundscape that is like a scene, or
absolutely,
you know? And I think that I apply that thinking to our recording.
Well, I was just gonna say this. Everything you're talking about right now kind of like circles back to what we were talking about earlier. That thing that I noticed with your production, and I think like at the heart, maybe not at the heart of this, but like there's a subtlety and a gentleness that I feel like you guys really can apply. That's how I feel like that's how you apply these concepts to garage post poppy rock stuff, you know, a place where there's been some cool avant-garde post punk stuff back in the day, and I'm not saying you guys like your way of doing it that this all makes sense, and God damn it, am I glad I asked you guys to come on the show. This is so cool.
Well, and I also appreciate that you are able to identify like a gentle and subtle touch in your words as you say it, because I feel like sometimes people hear the production and they think the opposite, that it's a barrage of unconsidered just lo-fi for the sake of lo-fi.
I do not get that from you guys. Yeah.
I've been coming up against this now. I feel like I switched fields into indie rock and like legacy indie rock. We now just do this band full time. We got signed to Sub Pop, and I've been getting a lot more people and feedback kind of being like, why do you record this way? It sounds bad. And like, this is not selling albums. And like, this is not the way like you use the studio. And it's like, it's not up to spec or something.
Or it's a shtick
for this label, or it's a shtick. It is so interesting to me. It's like, well, we created a methodology and it's its own project. And it's like, you have to think of the sound matter as a performance too. And I don't know.
I feel like that's, I don't know.
Interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing, that's the downside of success, quote unquote, you know, like that's just gonna, you know, as you get bigger, that's gonna, you know, increase, which sucks. But I think also with that, when you get to the level where you can exercise this gentle and subtle application of these kind of more experimental ideas, if you're not heavy-handed with those, that means you get them, in my opinion, to some degree to where they're kind of a part of you, and them's the breaks, I guess, is what I would say to those people who are like, why do you do it? Because if you guys did this, if you made the Sweeping Promises albums, if you took those and retracked them and made them like as pristine studio records as you could, I would have heard them. I would have been like, those are catchy songs, but I probably wouldn't have been drawn in, because that to me shows like some not originality. I don't want to like, but it's your voice. That's part of your voice, not just Lyra's actual voice, not just your guitar playing, which I haven't got to yet, which I'm so into. Also, Lyra, we were kind of nerding out a lot about movies and listening and stuff, and we're approaching an hour already, and I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface with y'all. But I have to say, this is so simple, but the throw, like on Throw the Dice, the way that like stacked throw on like the, I guess the bridge into the last course or whatever. Whew, chills every
That was a
time.
Caufield
Like,
idea.
oh, really? It's so, I mean, just the way it's executed
I
and the
think
way
it
it
was. Yeah.
sounds is just like, I mean, and you can sing so beautifully and you can also growl and you have such a good way, again, of restraint and subtlety of being able to weave in and out of there where, again, it does not sound, oh, this is a rock song or whatever, you know, like, I don't feel like there's any, like, this is, you're not trying to be anything but what you guys are on the record. That's the sense that I get. And I guess I'm sorry I've been gushing about this for like 55 minutes, but also not sorry.
Well, we appreciate that. That's so kind of you. Especially with that record, it took a lot out of us.
Holy
So
shit.
we're very, very happy to be on this side
I
of
bet. Yeah.
being able to talk to you know, other like musicians and people who appreciate, I don't know, just what it takes to make music, especially today.
It's so hard. It's so hard to cut through the noise. And again, I think this is, I said I'd stop gushing, but this just kind of goes back to like what I think really drew me in is because you have so many options or so many people and everybody can record anywhere if they have a laptop and a battery, you know, like you can just do anything anywhere. So it's really hard as a musician to try to stand out and convince people that you are worth their time. And it's really hard for a listener to find these new things. And I feel like something like your guys' approach with the production and just how, you know, just how the music is short and sweet, heavy hitter songs. You've eliminated a lot of the work for me because within a few seconds of the songs, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give this. All right, okay. You know, like, so yeah, great work. Can I borrow some of that, whatever it is that you guys throw on there?
Of course. Well, you can do it.
Yeah.
If we could do it.
Yeah, if we could do it. If we could do I feel like we're like, yeah, just like feral children.
We're like cave people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny when I was first listening too. I was like, well, I want to see some live performances on YouTube. I want to see like what's their setup like, because even though and then I saw it and then remembered like after seeing you guys actually playing in like an in studio or something, I'm like, I guess there aren't really like synths and samples and stuff, but like again with just the production, I was kind of like, all right, do they have some backing tracks? Because I know it's two of you guys and there's drums but no, you're just a 3-piece, the drummer, straight up fucking rock band, and you pull the songs like they sound fucking great live too. And I feel like they're a little bit of a different beast there because there's not as much of the backing vocals. And that's always something I wonder with singers. You know, if I hear like a lot of cool backing vocals, I'm like, well, what are they going to do live? You perfectly like fill the gaps where those would have been in the record and everything. Like, I don't know. You guys have something special, and I anticipate you guys blowing up, honestly. Like I hope you do to the level that you're comfortable with, but I could see you guys being like, you sound like the new cool shit to me, but I'm also 39, so that might be a bad thing for me to say that to you.
Yeah, oh no. No, thank you. Yeah. We hope so because this is our money now.
And and
unfortunately.
But and also it is what we never thought we would be able to do, and we're still like barely making it. But I mean, not that money is the end all be all of like any artistic pursuit, but
you have to live though. Yeah.
But if that means that we're able to be creative, then we're extremely grateful for that, and we'll we never in a million years thought that we would be able to make music our living. So we're gonna do our best as long as we can.
More albums to come.
I can't wait. Yeah. Are you guys tracking or writing or anything right now, or just focusing on touring?
every day.
We're tracking. We have, well, it's funny because we tracked um most of a new Sweeping Promises record, and then we decided to kind of like change some things up in our recording methods. And we also acquired for both Sweeping Promises and other projects to be, you know, named at a later date. Speaking of like synthesizers and like really cool kind of electronic gear, Caufield did a lot of research and he convinced me of getting a Soma Pulsar drum machine.
Yeah, those are
which
cool.
is so cool.
Those are so
We've
cool.
been pairing
Yeah.
that with like our Lindrum.
Yeah, we borrowed a
Yeah.
Lindrum
Oh,
from
nice. Yeah.
a friend of ours, and yeah,
Nice.
it's really cool.
Right on. Well, yeah, if you ever wanna chat electronic gear, I've talked to a lot of people. I know a lot of stuff about it. Not a lot of stuff about how it works, but I know a lot of what's out there. So if you're ever like, I'm looking for this or that, send me a message. I might know what that thing is. Maybe.
Yeah.
That's good to know, especially
and it would
because
just
you're
be a
based
good
in
reason
Washington.
to chat. What's that?
Yeah, I said because if you're based in Washington, then that means like, yeah, it's just an excuse to go and look at gear and
Oh
and
man, we
talk.
have Patchworks in Seattle, which is a beautiful showroom with all sorts of amazing stuff. And then Control Voltage in Portland is a great store. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
and,
like
See,
that
this
store.
is what we need to know because
Yeah.
we really love Switched On in Austin because
Oh,
grew
yeah.
up in Austin. So
one of my first, before I even released any episodes, one of my first recordings was with Chad from Switched On, because I went down there for a wedding. It was really cool.
What is Chad's group?
I don't know what his group's called. It's been years since. I don't even know if he had a group or if he was just doing Chad Allen.
did
I
he
don't
ever
think
do stuff
he's.
with Neil?
Maybe was he in 1,000-Foot Whale Claw?
I don't know.
I know. Maybe,
Ghosts
but
from
I
the
don't.
past.
I'm not sure. There were a lot of
Associated memory.
cool, yeah, a lot of cool musicians like in and around Switched On when I was around
Yes.
then.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're at an hour. We're over an hour, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So I want to give you the last little bit to scream anything you'd like from the modular mountaintops. You can promote stuff. It could be a proclamation, whatever you'd like.
Our album is called Good Living is Coming for You. It is a split release between Feel It in the United States and Sub Pop abroad. And
We're going out on tour this Friday for our first ever UK EU jaunt,
Whoa,
which we're really
nice.
excited about.
And this train's not stopping. There'll be more shows and more albums soon.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I'll put all the links to all the stuff in the show notes and whatnot. All right, that's our show. Thank you so much to Sweeping Promises for coming on. Please go check out their music if you haven't already. So good. Thank you to Patchworks, Novation, After Later Audio, and 4MS for their continued support of Podular Modcast. And if you would like to support Podular Modcast, you can head over to the website, podularmodcast.com podularmodcast.com/store and get yourself, I mean, it's getting cold. We need beanies. Or you can head over to patreon.com/podularmodcast. Don't forget, I'm going to be doing some giveaway action very soon on a first come, first served basis on the Patreon. So if you want to be in on that, then do the thing that you're supposed to do when you do the thing. This week's secret word is whale tail. Thanks for watching.